But thank you all for choosing this class. You had a lot of choices, a lot of really good choices, and just thank you for being here. That is an encouragement to me as well. As Betty said, I've moved around a lot as a child, but I've been here 34 years. So a lot of my story has happened right here within these walls, within this town, and with some of the familiar faces out here. So I'm going to go ahead and get going. I like roller coasters. I love roller coasters. I want the biggest and the fastest. My last roller coaster rides were in Busch Gardens, where they have one that hangs on the outside and you go a 90-degree drop straight down. Oh my goodness, it was amazing. Then they have one that goes 0 to 60 in 5 seconds, through loops, hangs you up backwards, and you do it again. I love the thrill. Thing is, you know what, it's on a track. And I can kind of see another what's going to happen. It's on a track. And I know where it's going to end up. I'm going to come back right to my station, right? Life is like that. Life's got lots of ups and downs, a lot of fast things, a lot of slow things. I like the slow clickety-clack of that ride up on the roller coaster. And when life does that, though, sometimes we don't know the track. We can't see the road. We don't know which way it's going to take us. It might veer off the track that we thought it was going to be on. But I do know where I'm going to end up, bottom line. So I'm going to use... That's not the right picture. I'm going to use this chart. Actually, I learned this from Kathy Crockett. She, in a class that she was doing, she had learned this from a lady that does a lot of coaching and a lot of personal teaching and things like that. This is just a life chart. I'm going to take you through a quick life chart, or as quick as I can. And the highs and the lows. And we all have them, right? And so to help tell my story, I'm just going to use this method just to help tell the story. So I did start with the beach. When I was, like I said, we moved around a lot. I lived in Houston, California, and in Florida. And this was my favorite beach. Well, the one in Florida. It's just been my favorite place, my place of respite. I just love to be there. But anyway, I was at 16 years old, living in Florida, and my parents moved me here. Yeah, a little bit different dirt, right? Sand was a little different color. Didn't stay under my feet. It was in the air. So for me, at 16 years old, when I had just got my driver's license and ready to hang with all my friends at the beach every day, life changed for me. I stayed here. I went to ACU for volleyball. I came back to Lubbock. Events brought me back here. Then at 21, I met my husband here. And I got married. I mentioned that ripe old age of 21. He was a student here in the school. I was in the singles class, and we were to introduce ourselves to and make them feel welcomed. He was the first and last man I ever introduced myself to. So, that was not in my nature. I'm naturally a shy person, so it was not in my nature to do that. But I introduced myself to him. 4 months later, we were married. Don't tell that to your girls. Nobody wants me around. People don't want me around telling that story. I'm like, it's all right. So we went to Florida for a job. So we were in Lubbock. We went to Florida for a job. We were here and stayed in Florida. It was fun. We had a good time. My first child was born there. So then we had Ryan. Circumstances happened, and we lose a job. So that's kind of tough. You're young, you lose a job, you have to we go to Oklahoma. Oklahoma's not all bad, it's not way down here. It's not all bad. He had family there. It was a soft landing for us. It was a good transition place. So we were there. Then we had baby number 2. Here comes Lindsay. Lindsay's a big part of my story. Lindsay was born, and I apologize, not all of my old pictures are digitized, so I only have a few that I've got up here. So I had Lindsay. The moment that she was born, within a few hours, they moved her to a children's hospital. Took her from me. I had a C-section. I couldn't go. We didn't know what was going on. It was quite a very low. During this time, we find out she ends up spending about 7 months of the first year of her life in the hospital, in and out. It was very trying. A lot of that was testing, procedures, figuring out what was going on, what was needed, and just a lot of trial through there. Also during this time, husband loses his job in Oklahoma. So we're here, things are going good, and then we come up and we end up back in Lubbock. I can't say that's negative, right? Let me check that one. We're back in Lubbock. Again, another safe place to land. Families here, we know people, another safe place to land. David's here, he works for, actually worked for the AIM program for a couple of years. And during this time, there's a lot of health issues with Lindsay. There's a lot of therapies, a lot of things, just a lot going on, a lot of needs that she had. And also in this time, I have a couple of miscarriages. Very difficult. If you've had those, it's, a hard time, hard to bounce back, but hard to understand. And especially after having loss of a healthy child, I was concerned that I could have another healthy child. And during this time, we're in Lubbock, we're going through all this stuff, and David decides to change careers. Completely changes careers, and it's a good thing. We didn't have insurance, which we know how important that is. Back in those days, you couldn't get guaranteed issue plans. You had to be underwriting or get on a group plan. And it was time to we were having to use a lot of social services to meet our needs. And he decided it was time for him to make a change, to provide for our family a little bit more. So we're here. We're still, we still got Lindsay. And with Lindsay, like I said, this is just kind of a constant. It's a constant up and down, a constant work, a constant struggle, a constant need that we're dealing with. But we do have another baby. So then we have Logan. He's baby number 3. And our family starts to look like this. So it's a good time. We're excited. We have a precious new child. Then, during this time, when Logan's about 1.5 years, Lindsay, at 5.5 years old, she dies. She dies suddenly from an infection that overtook her lungs. It was a bacterial infection that actually invaded her lungs to where she could not recover from it. She died in the emergency room one day. A lot of times people ask me, did you expect it? I said, or didn't you expect it? And I said, not today. Not today. We were doing fine. Life was moving on. We had found that rhythm with all of her needs. Like I said, during this time, my house looked like a little ICU room. I had a trach, I had oxygen, feeding tube, a suction machine. I just didn't have an IV. Otherwise, it pretty much looked like a little ICU room. So, and Ryan used to sing, "The oxygen man's a person in your neighborhood." If any of y'all still watch Sesame Street, that was his normal. That's what he knew. So her death took a lot away. It opened up a lot of time. It was a difficult time. Actually, after she died, my grandfather dies. So she was my first close loss. I hadn't even lost a grandparent that I was close to. So my grandfather dies during this time, 1 year later. And that was just another, that patriarch of the family gone. I have another miscarriage in here. So another loss, another miscarriage. Then after lots of begging and pleading with David, my husband, I have a sweet little girl, Peyton. And you recognize that name maybe. It is a sweet name. We blame it on my mother being hard of hearing. When I wanted Peyton, she said, "Oh, I thought you said Peyton," and we went done. So that's how that came about. Also, David's father died when he was 21. And so Klein was like a second father to him, a surrogate father. He had questions. He went to Klein Peyton. Bobby was his girlfriend. I allowed that. So they had coffee together, and I said, "That's allowed to be your only girlfriend." So they just special people to us, and definitely a namesake there. I can remember one of the last times I was here with her, and I bring her up, and Klein would pull me over and goes, "Have you met this child?" So it made him proud to. And names do that. Names can make you proud. So where am I? So Peyton is now where our family's carrying along. She's, like I said, Lindsay has died, and our family's starting to look a little bit like this. So when she is 6 years old, 6, 11, and 17, David, my husband, at 40 years old, is diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. Pretty big shock. We went in, wasn't feeling well, Doctor says, we've got a blocked colon. We've got to go in. When it comes out, he said, it's as bad as it gets. So within a few hours, my life turns around, right? The stage 4 diagnosis is when they say he said, I'll be surprised if he's here in 6 months. 6 months to a year. So during that time, there are so many positives. David speaks. He carries on. We learn how to live in the rhythm of this. I learned how to try to explain to these children at different ages, at different levels of understanding what's going on in their life and what's happening and why this is. And it's a struggle. It's very much a struggle. My grandmother dies during this time. David he does happen to live, when we get past the 1-year mark, we took his surgeon out to dinner because we lived longer than he thought we would. As the chemos and treatments were improving, he lived even longer. He lived right at 2 years. So 2 years into this, he dies at 42 years old. I'm 43, just a few years older. So he's 42, and he passes away from cancer. So during this time, as you can imagine, I'm struggling again to try to help these children through their grief as I'm dealing with my own grief, as I'm struggling with how to put a life in place. Remember, during this time that I didn't mention, I was stay-at-home full-time mom. I hadn't worked full-time. I managed the home and the children by choice and let him have the freedom to do more work. But during this time, so now I'm single. I'm 43 and I'm single and I'm raising kiddos. And my oldest son marries his college sweetheart. And I apologize for that picture. I know it's bad. So Ryan marries. That first child getting married, it changes the family. Now my family is forever changed again. I'd gone from, that to this. Now my family has changed again. But it was a good thing. It was a good time. It was in the midst of pain and heartache. There was a good thing that happened, and that was a blessing. What a blessing that was to have family together and find the joy in that and do that there. During this time, I start a full-time job. You asked me, did my boss give me the day off? I said, yes, I did. But no, I'm not my boss, but I have a ton of flexibility. But starting a job, here I am, 45 years old. I called myself a dinosaur. I've never had a full-time job. I knew that the mouse wasn't real on the computer. I knew C drive, but they started doing H and J and S and K, and I'm like, what are those? For my very first PowerPoint I did, I'm like, she goes, you have it on your computer? I'm like, oh, I do. So I knew nothing. I go in green for a job, and I see Sweet Barb sitting there. And at one time, I was a struggle, to make that shift. Here I am single. Here I am dealing with grief. Here I am with children walking different stages of life, and I start a job. And Barb said, I found it harder to go back to work full-time than I did adjusting to the mission field. That made my shoulders go, oh, okay, I can do this. So thank you for those words. Those were a blessing to me, and it really helped me. During this time, David's 42, so I have my middle child, the one that's in the picture there with his sister's elbow in his face. That's pretty much how he is all the time. He's always the one kind of getting poked at or something, but he struggles. His struggles are hard. He's 13 years old. He's 13 years old when his dad dies. There's a lot of struggle there. He didn't know what to do with those emotions. He told me later, he said, Mom, I'd have to stop at the door and just take a deep breath before I could walk in. He struggled. He had addictions to different, he abused different things. Like, I didn't even know you could get high on Robitussin. Didn't know that. I learned that it's something you can buy at the grocery store. So that he was looking to try to feel that hurt and to soften that hurt. And he was looking in all the wrong places, in all the directions. It was difficult. It was a very trying time, very difficult time. Very much a struggle. I'll tell more about that later. So then, also during this time, so not only is he struggling, my parents have always had kind of a difficult marriage and a difficult relationship. They separate, and shortly after they divorce. After 50 years of marriage. 50 years. And sometimes I say it's there, but at the same time, I can say that divorce, we're neutral. Because of the chaos that was in that relationship, the chaos it brought to the family, there was some peace in that relationship was no longer together. So I won't say that it was all bad. It was hard. It was hard to walk with that with my mom, but I will say it was kind of neutral because of the situation. So they divorced. Then my dear friend, Mitzi Brown, she's been a friend of mine for years. She comes up with cancer. She comes up, she's very sick. We're figuring out what's going on with her. Then after pretty quickly, she also dies. Some of you know Mitzi. She's 47 and she passes away. 46, I believe. 46, she passes away. So a lot going on, right? I promise it gets better. So there's just a lot. Life is just, I always say, in between these highs and lows, there's still these things going on in here. You know, there's good times, there's marriages, there's happy things, but there's a lot of just the underlying difficult times and strife. Then one day, as I'm an older single person, somebody comes asking me to start a older singles class. Betty's husband back there, Bill and Rodney asked us, and Bob calls me, did you get that letter? Did you get that letter too? They want us to start an older singles class. I'm not single, I'm a widow. I'm not old. Anyway, so through that, we worked through that. As I told you, we failed miserably. That friendship changed. That was a friendship that we had known each other for years. Our kids had done stuff together. A friendship that was just supposed to start a new class. It changed a bit. These were our families at the time. And I guess when you're 47 and you know what you're looking for and God hand delivers a faithful Christian man, you don't take much time to think about it and you get married. So, very good time. It was a very joyful time. This was Bob comes into my life is his name. We get married. 47. New time of life. The kids are pretty happy with that, we think. Our extended family was very supportive of us. I will have to say all but about 8 of those are mine. So I have a large family. David's family was there. We were both one of 4. His family was there. They were very supportive and very excited to see me marry again. And so it meant a lot for us, for them to be there. What's my next slide? So then we've got this moment. 3 months later, short-lived time, Ryan divorces. Another divorce in the family. Wife left him. Wife went back to no boyfriend. He tried to keep that back together. He tried to pursue that and tried to fix, and it wasn't fixable. There was sometimes there's times when that happens. As a mom, I did tell him, you need to run. You know, you don't have children. You don't have anything to hold on to. She's leaving. She's gone. She's been gone for a long time. You need to let that go. So he did. Her children. So I like to show this picture because, you know, this was us getting married, us putting our families together. It didn't take very long. This is more what they felt like. Honest. It's a struggle. We've got a divorced kid. We've got kids that are, you know, up and down with this new marriage. What do they do with it? This picture really it was them. We had first Thanksgiving that we go to Bob's family. They always do Thanksgiving at their place. So we'd been married, about 6 months, 8 months. And I said, can I have a picture of all of you? Would you just all get on the porch? We were getting ready to leave. You don't want a picture. You're not going to deal with this. Go sit in your phone. We don't want a picture. It's time to go. We want to leave. We don't need that. I was just constant. They were not going to give in. I'm not doing that. I have braces. I'm not smiling. Okay, so everybody sit down. Ryan goes, sit like this. I'm not smiling. The one on the left said, I really was mad in that picture. I'm like, of course you were. Look at you. I know you were mad. So it kind of, we say we stayed one day too long. This was people that had not spent a lot of time together yet, and much less when you're away from your own home and that concentrated time together, it was difficult. It was a challenge. Where am I? So during this time, and I still have Logan, my struggling kid. He still is struggling. I walk into work one day, and I feel heavy. And I decided, you know what? I need to go away. I need to go get some time for me and go work on myself. And that was a huge blessing to me, was time and some time to reflect. And I like my picture of my messy beach. Usually this beach is pristine white. This time that I went, it was not. But it still gave me my place to reflect and to be. So then we're here. Guess what? Ryan has done that. Well, he has an old friend that he rekindles a relationship with, and he gets married again. So he's all happy. We've got, yay, he found someone to love. If you know Michelle is as good as gold. Couldn't have handpicked one better myself. So very excited. They marry, I guess about a year and a half, 2 years, I forget exactly. I think 2 years after we get married. But they dated for long. Again, we have pictures of them when they were in high school and different times. So they also knew each other. We continue to grow as a blended family. We try to take some time, do some events together, try to provide opportunity away from our normal day life just to work on those relationships. Of course, then, first grandbaby, right? First grandbaby's born. Ryan's moved to St. Louis. They're far away, but Lindsay's born. Yes. Another Lindsay Shelburne. Ryan is my sentimental kiddo, and it meant a lot to him to name her after him. And then life is moving quickly at this point. A few months later, Taylor marries, and with him comes the blessing of my oldest granddaughter. So she comes along with the marriage, and we get to add them to our family. And then, then quickly, there's a few more. A couple more years come by, and then there's Hudson and Beckett. And we're going to get the gratuitous grandchild picture, right? They are a blessing. But as you can see, our family just is continuing to expand and continue to grow. Then along in here, long ago, this is about 4 years ago, my sweet mother starts to show signs of not being able to stay alone anymore. The memory is starting to fade. And so there comes a time I have to move my mother. Dementia is what's going on. The confusion is starting. And so it was time, and we had to make that decision to move her. A hard decision when it's someone that doesn't understand why they need to go and when they need to go. She'd forgotten. We tease that she forgot she knew. We found the list of places that she was looking to go and move to, but she forgot she needed to go. So it came time to move her. And during this time, my mother-in-law, we have to move. So during this time, we clear out 2 homes that have been lived in for 40 years, 45 years. Oh, yeah, I saw Ross. Oh, yes. And on top of that, they are Depression generation. You didn't throw anything away. It might be useful. I'm sorry, Bill Brown, but we threw away 7 tons of trash. Tons. We kept a garage full for a garage sale. We all took trailers home. We all took the special things we wanted, and there was still that much that was no longer needed. My mother found out through my niece that she said, they'll clean it up. Yeah, we did. It was a lot. So a lot of when you do that, a lot of emotions come with that. A lot of feelings. One of my top memories is my mother-in-law at her home. I was the newest one in the family, remember? I'd only been here, 6 years or so. I hadn't been here 30-something years like the other daughter-in-law. Nobody would touch the bell tower, the bell case. Nobody would touch the bell collection. So I look at Peyton and I go, guess it's us. And so we start pull out some nice ones. And I'm like, what are you going to do with these? And she goes, anybody want? No. Okay, so we start topping them in the trash. Blink, blink, blink. All of a sudden, the entire house gets quiet and they all come in. And I'm like, did you want them? Did you want them? Here they are. Do you want to take them? They were like, no. No. And I said, we're keeping one. Everybody took the special one that they wanted, and then they were gone. It's just, that's a lesson of how temporal things are, how temporal they are. So shortly after this time, I have a daughter, I've got the youngest one here. COVID hits, but we're to have a wedding. So again, the baby gets married. So now this is number 3 wedding. COVID shut down her venue 2 weeks before the wedding. So we made a quick pivot, went out to Tennessee where a longtime friend of mine lives, and she said, I've got a place you can go. And I teased my daughter. I said, when I was dropping you off to Nashville, that's where she lives, in the Nashville area. She said, Mama, it's so beautiful here. I'll just get married under these trees. I said, be careful what you ask for. You got exactly what you asked for. Just a bunch of trees, 20 people, and we had a beautiful, sweet wedding. We used all of her things and a little meal, and it was very, very precious. COVID, as we all know, has really affected our world and our life. During this time, I lose a mother-in-law to COVID. She's midway, COVID got her. My husband gets COVID, ends up in the hospital. My healthy husband, who never gets anything, ends up sick. Some lab works revealed issues. So through testing and biopsy, we find out that he has level 4 liver cirrhosis. It's from long-term use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. So stage 4 colon cancer. Stage 4, level 4 liver cirrhosis. And my husband said, I went, oh. I did. My feelings were, here we go again. Because it meant we're just one stage off of liver transplant. Right? The numbers are where they are. He's taken the bull by the horn. He's done some things that he can. He's come off all medications. There's no treatments really to do, but we're doing different things to help him keep that at a stable level. He could stay there for 20 years. Who knows? We don't know what that is. We do know he was 59 when he was diagnosed. He's now 61 and just retired as of December. And part of it was I needed him to be able to not have that physical stress on his body. So he didn't need those NSAIDs for the 4 bulging discs in his neck and the 5 in the back and the problem in his elbow and etc. He needed to not have that physical job. He needed to be able to take a break. So that was important to us. But that has changed things. But we still continue. Life is still moving on. We still get together. This big old family gets together for holidays. That's a lot of personalities. I'm just going to say, a lot of personalities rolling around in that room. But we do have smiles most of the time. And then we try to, again, provide these opportunities. These are children that came from different families that weren't raised together most of their life. The boys only had a few months, less than a year together. The girls had some more time. So we now try to create those times and spaces where they have to pull away from jobs and works and responsibilities and be together. And that's kind of where we are. That's where we are today. We're spread out. I have family, my daughter in Nashville, a son in Chattanooga, a daughter in Dallas, and 2 here. Those 4 grandkids are here for now. Because they probably won't all stay. See, I've always loved the beach. You might have noticed a few beach pictures. I've always loved it. I love this picture as a kid. It's like, that's in California. Just know where that was. So our future dream, this is where I stayed one time, my balcony picture. We have a future dream, which I think we all have to do this. This is life. But I think I have to keep dreaming, even though that road may not get me there. I may not get there the way I wanted it to get there. But we do have a dream. And our dream, we're putting a plan in place. We're working the plan. And we have the goal. And the goal is to be there about this time next year or next spring. We have some things, like I said, things we want to do. We hope that God will bless it and let it pan out. But it's a place that I find rest and respite. And our goal is to hopefully provide that for others down the road. So there's the story. You hung with me. Thank you. It's a lot. It's a lot in a short time, right? A lot going up and down. And like I said in there, we all know in these highs and lows, there's this going on too, right? This is when Kathy taught it, mirrors a heartbeat. Mine might be a little extreme. That might put me on medication for this one. But, our life has rhythm. That's life. That's the essence of life, is our heart and the heartbeat. But I have this straight line here. This straight line for me represents God. God is the constant. He's the reliable. He's always there. Everything that goes up and down goes through him. It's always with him. He's the constant in my life. In every incident, every life interruption, every choice can change the trajectory of my life. I wanted to be in Florida. I tried to get back. We went back. I had a child there. We tried. But yet, that isn't where my life ended up. It changed. The trajectory was changed. And I always say, we all know there are going to be storms in life. We don't get away from that. Not every storm comes to destroy. Some come to clear a path. Storms can wash away the surface. They can reshape landscape, change a coastline. I think of this year alone, a tornado came. We were in the direct line at one time, but it went south. That island that was there is no longer. I don't even know that there's land for them to rebuild on. It changed the coastline. We've seen all the rains in California and the mudslides, the hillsides, the landscape is changing. But sometimes it clears a path. Had I not had some of these storms, would I be where I am today? Would I have the relationship in the family I have today? Even though it has its challenges that happen. And the storms, they can reshape me. Obviously, right? You don't come through this being who you were before. They change you. Everything that you hit, everything you do, all your hurts and pains, they mold you. They shape you. Let's see if I got a little bit more time, Betty. How am I doing?
10 more minutes.
Okay. Just to, Betty's asked me to tell my story, and that's, I think, a lot to tell in a short time. And try to hit the highlights. Thank you for the gratuitous grandchildren pictures. Well, what did I learn? She said, what did you learn? What do you see when things like this come along? I learned that I might not get to live in a place of my choosing. I needed to choose to find the good in that place, or I'll miss out on a lot of life. I may miss out on a lot of people and their blessings. I found that God provided in this place that I resisted hard, tried to get away. He provided for me, provided my husband's in this place. Losing a job is scary. A quick loss of a job is scary. When you're young, when you're old, it's all scary. Family rallied around us as we recovered, and I saw my church family help and provide for us. Lindsay taught me so much without ever saying a word. She never spoke. She never held anything, but she was expressive. She helped to ground me in truths. She brought people together as they served me through her. She taught me to give a voice to one who did not have one. Her needs were met only by my attention. Asking why this, why does that, is hard. It's overwhelming. We may never know the why. I never knew what Lindsay's diagnosis was. We looked at many things. We had never had a specific diagnosis. Why did a baby enter life with so much suffering? Instead, I learned to ask what? What do I do next? What can I do to get my next breath? I lean into the what I need to do. And how do I do that? One small step at a time. One baby step. One little movement. One breath at a time. And when I learn to change the why to praise, the praising then has the power to change me and to lift that heaviness off of me. Praising helps me see all the blessings. In all these hard times, there were blessings innumerable. I actually did a blessings journal when Lindsay was little. I needed that. I needed to remind myself of all the good and all that I've been given when life was a struggle, a daily struggle. There is a peace that passes understanding. I have felt it and I feel it. I'll never forget the moment I was sitting at a stoplight. Nothing special. 82nd Indiana, close to where I live. I was just sitting at a stoplight. And all of a sudden, this feeling literally started at the top of my head and just washed all the way through me. And it was like a warm water coming over me and just relaxing me all the way to my toes. That's the peace that passes understanding. I remember being taught that when I was young, and I'm like, what is that? I understand it. Your body will feel it. David taught me, my first husband, and reminded me that as a believer in Christ, I am healed. He would be asked, why do you not pray for healing? He would answer with, I'm healed. That was how he wanted to live through his terminal diagnosis. When he spoke, sharing his story, a gentleman said, what can I do to help? And he said, let me just tell my story. Let me just speak. He loved to speak. He was gifted at it. But he had a line in there. He said, I've got just as many todays as you do. That was his perspective. A man with terminal cancer at 40 years old could still say, I've got just as many todays as you do. How am I going to use those? He reminded us to live on purpose, that our pain has purpose. He would say, I'm the lucky one. I'm the lucky one. Wow, I didn't get that. He did. He knew his reward. Yet, he understood that it was going to be hard on us, that the ones that were left, me and those 3 children, that it was going to be very hard on us. I learned that you can laugh in the really hard times. If you knew David, right, he had a contagious laugh. If Stacy Smith was here, I'd get her to do it because she could mimic his laugh like nobody else. In fact, when we were in the hospital the first time at the diagnosis, and someone came to visit, and the nurse's station said, go where the laughter is. That's how he dealt with life. He liked the Gilda Radner quote that said, I wish everyone could have cancer if the side effects weren't so bad. Yeah, side effects are pretty rough, right? And it's the fact that living with a terminal diagnosis makes life very clear. It makes your purpose clear. It makes where you want to be clear. It makes your today clear. I believe that trials reveal you. I've said that for a long time. They wash away all the stuff that's on the outside, and what's inside is revealed. It comes to the surface because it is. Trials can help us grow, but they will certainly reveal who you are. My question is, will I allow the trial to write my story, or will I allow God to write it? God meets us where we are. He meets us in our pain, in our fear, in our struggle. Now, that's the reason I like this illustration. Through all of this is God. Every time I go up, and God's there. He's that constant. He's with me always. God meets me and provides for me in the mundane chores. Being a caregiver of a child that has the high needs there's a lot of mundane chores. There's a lot of sterilization, a lot of cleaning, a lot of requirements. He meets me in that. He gives me that strength. I see why God wants us to be part of a body. I can do all this on my own. No way. I had people there to encourage me verbally. I had people to encourage me physically. I had people there to provide. In our large churches, in our large groups, they're amazing people, full of amazing people. When I don't have words for the pain, for my hurt, I am so grateful that the Spirit intercedes. I know at the times I would stand in the shower because that's where I could cry really hard by myself. I could stand in the shower and do that, and I wouldn't have words for that pain and for that hurt that I was feeling. But the Spirit interceded for me, and I knew He did. And I was lifted up because I knew you were praying for me and praying for us, and I knew that was how I was walking through a day. I knew that. I am strong. His power is made perfect in my weakness. For when I'm weak, then I'm strong. God provided me with the strength I needed for each of these situations. I didn't know how to do most of this. I hadn't been that, I hadn't experienced it. Like I told you, I lost a daughter before I lost a grandfather. We didn't have that. We had turmoil as a child, but not some of these things that hit. So God provided me with the strength that I needed. And my goal, I want it to be God's strength seen through me, not me. I don't do this of my own. I know that. But I want to see that it's God's strength coming through me. I have a couple of comments from people here. Another well-known Bob Crockett, and I think God uses people constantly to give us the words at the moment that we need them. I had my struggling child, and I had taken him to counseling. I had done so many things with him to try to have that wake-up moment, and I was really almost at a loss. And Bob came to me and he said, "You've done everything you can do as a mother." I needed to hear that. I didn't have anyone to tell me that. I was doing it on my own. I needed someone to tell me that, and I was so blessed by God providing that for me. There was one more I was going to say, I forgot. The life I thought I was going to have is not the one I get to have, but what a beautiful life I do have. And I think that's a choice to step into that, to rely on it, to believe in it, and to love it. One day, you'll tell your story of how you overcame something, and it will be someone else's survival guide. I look at faces in here, I see Terry. You've got your pains. I know you. I know many of you. I know some of your stories. I know some of the things and heartaches you've been through and some of the difficulties. Share your story. It may be powerful to someone else. It'll be healing to you. I like what John Acuff says, the scars you share become a lighthouse for those headed toward the same rocks. And Betty, I can break there.
Tell them what you're going to talk on in a few minutes, the next session.
In a few sessions, I'll go over where I draw this strength. I mean, it'll be some common scripture to you, but I want to point it out. Where do I get this from? Where do I get this part of my story from? And what I relied on and needed. And then also Betty asked, how do I glean? How do you help others? What did I receive? And how can you use that in your ministries and what you do to help others and to share with others? And so that's what we'll do. Have a few resources, and we'll kind of go through that as quickly as I can get through it.